Overview. So the active budget control, it is actually the feature released again February this year. So I don't know if any of you implement this yet, but it is a features that SAP, take from the SAP Customer Influence Portal and then implement it in a production environment for all the customers. As we all know that, the older version of ByDesign, it only has very basic financial budget control functions, like just entering the budget planning data at the GL level or the cost center level, and then you run reporting against that. But today, a lot of business, it requires stronger financial control on spending, especially on overhead spending. So with that, and that SAP take that requirement, and then they, enhance the features in production with this, what they call active budget control. A story of the example will be, for example, as part of the fiscal year, preparation, the CFO has approved budget that they need to put into the system for the next year. He needs to put in the whole year's approved budget plan, but then he wants to release the budget not for the whole year, but just on either monthly or quarterly, so that the procurement team can, spend the budget as it needs to spend, instead of release the budget for the whole year and then they might run out of budget in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year. So if you want to actively control your budget spending behaviors on your expense items, this active budget control feature is really good on taking care of that. Now, what this feature gave you is you have the ability to plan your yearly budget planning in the system. And then with that, again, you have the ability to release the budgets for spending. You can release it for each month that you want to release, or you can release it by quarter. You can also have the ability to release it by certain budget categories or GEOs only, instead of releasing all of them at one time. And then with that, what the system does is when the buyer's creating a purchase order, or they're changing a purchase order, or if they're creating an invoice without a purchase order references, the system would check on the budgets setting in the back end and does the calculations to make sure that when they put in the order amount plus the actual amount and the encumbrances amount, it doesn't exceed the budget that was released. With this new feature, you will also see the budget category, which is a new concept introduced by SAP in the general entries as well, so that you can do better analysis on how your budget spending. There's some reports available with this new feature that supports this functionality, which I want to show you one example of that today as well. Let's take a look at the configuration and setups. How do we enable this feature? First, we need to scope in the feature. We go to the scoping section on the questions for financial and management accounting. We're going to enable the budget controls and the budget queries. After that, there's actually configuration in the fine-tuning activities that we need to perform on the budget queries. There's 3 fine-tuning activities we need to double check. So let me put up my ByDesign screen to show you what that looks like. Now, this is an example of the fine-tuning activity for budget queries. Here, you will be able to define a GL account group for the reporting, and eventually when you define a GL account group for reporting, it becomes a budget categories in the system. And within each GL account group or budget categories, you would then assign what GLs fall under that group. That way, when you determine the budget planning, those accounts can roll up into the budget categories for reportings. In my examples today, I'm using these third-party budget categories, and then training, and then travel. But you can create your own customized budget categories in here, and then make assignments in here with your own account determinations. And just keep in mind in one thing is, once you define all your accounts assignments for GL account groups, whenever you add new GLs in the future, you want to make sure that you're coming here to make the changes in these fine-tune activities to make sure the new GL is accountable for the budget category setup as well. After the budget category is setting up, then the system has the forecast posting schemes that was predefined, so you will confirm that. Okay, Now the forecast posting schemes is defined on how you want to, define using the accounts in the forecast for the budget categories calculations. And then once you define that, you would then be able to assign the forecast posting schemes against the budget categories, as long as defining how you want to see your budget categories warnings in the reporting as well, based on the percentage of the budget spent. Okay. Now, this is a quick introduction on the setups on the configuration side. Now, let's take a look at the master data side. On the master data side, we need to make sure that, for any cost center that you want to enable the budget control, you want to go to the cost center's master data on the definitions, enable this budget check, enable checkbox. As long as the product categories, because budget control is always kicking in whenever this product categories is combination with cost center, you would then always want to make sure that anything that you want to check on the active budget control, the product category, it needs to assign the budget categories. By default, the system is not allowing users to enter the budget category during the transactions. So you will always need to make sure this master data is maintained with the correct budget categories in the backend. These are the mandatory setups on master data to enable the feature. There's also master data setup on material master data and service master data that you can set up budget category. This is optional. Well, if you set up budget category on the product master data level, then the system would determine the budget category from the product instead of the product category. However, if you leave this brand, then the system would take the budget categories from the product categories information. Okay. Now, this is all the setup that we need to do to enable the feature. It's not that complicated. Let's move on to a demo, an actual demo in the system to show you what that looks like. Now, in the actual demo, I want to show you a flow of how we can create and update a budget plan, and then how we can release and update a release budget, and then how we can create a purchase order that actually kick in the budget controls, and how supply invoice work. This is actually working the same as purchase order, and then we can review quick journal entries and then review some reporting at the end. Now, a storyline for this is maybe a finance manager. My finance manager, I think, is Edward. He put in the budgets planning for the year already, so he has the budget plans upload into the system. This is upload from the Excel workbook. I think some of you might be familiar with that if you're using budget planning feature before in ByDesign. From the Excel workbook, you can upload budgets by GEO account and cost center before, but now with this new feature, it actually enables the budget category concept so that you can upload the budget planning by budget categories. Okay, now I have all my budget categories planning upload for the year. I think for travel is $6,000 per month. And then for training, I think is $2,000 per month from July. Now, if you want to make changes for the budget planning, you can always using the Excel workbooks to make changes by adding the new changes of the new budget category and GEOs, or you can take adjustments for existing budgets and then move it to the new budget category. Now, this example is adding a new budget planning for budget categories third party, and then with this GEO account for third party. I think this is 5188.000, and inside cost center A11101110. Okay, you fill in all the information, including your prime version, your company code, your physical years, set of books, etc. And then once everything looks good, you just need to save the data. It's gonna save the data in from Excel book into ByDesign. And then when you come back to ByDesign screen and refresh the budget planning data, you will be able to see the information is coming along. Third party is here. Any questions so far? Just a note, you can create, as you know that you can create, different version of the budget planning before in the system that you can use for different set of books. But with the active budget control feature, the system only takes the default plannings to use for the calculations. So it might not very useful if you're trying to create multiple budget versions and then trying to use that for active budget control. Okay. Once the budget is planned and then is uploaded, the next thing that you want to do is release the budget on the months that you want to release them so that it can be released for the procurement team to use for procurement. To do that, there's actually another new manual that was released by SAP with this new feature called budget release. You might not see that now because it might not add it into your user authorizations. So if you didn't see the budget release feature, the menu on the Word Center, just go to your user authorizations and add these budget release features onto the user roles. Now the budget release feature, it looks very similar to budget planning. What this does is it allows you to release the budget that you have just planned for. Now, in my example here, I have released the budget for, I think this is, again, I think this is for travel and training budget categories with three GEOs. I released it for the second and the third quarter of the year, but I haven't released anything yet for the third quarter. Say, Edward, the finance manager now is September, so he wants to release the budget for October for the team to use, then what he would do is he's gonna open the budget release Excel workbook, which you can download it from ByDesign on the budget release menu, and then enter the release version or the information that it was applicable for that version that you're trying to release, and then put in the budget categories that you want to release. For that word center, for that cost center, sorry. And then save the data back to SAP. Now you also see these two extra lines here I have in my workbook, which is an example of, when you're trying to make adjustment to your existing release budgets. Sometimes, you might figure out that you need to move budget from one budget category to another budget category, or from one GL to another because some changes in the company. So to do that, you just put a negative number on the months that you want to adjust on the item that you want to move out the budget, and then put a positive number on the opposite side to make adjustments. Let me save the data back to ByDesign. Once this is done, when you go back to ByDesign and then release this, refresh the budget release screen, the information will show up that, with the changes that we just made. Another thing I want to mention here is, even though SAP implement these active budget control features, there's options that, we allow users to either make the users keep the budget in place strictly, do not want them to exceed the plans, or they have options to, set up the system where users can still put in transactions when the budget is exceeding the plan. ByDesign enables that just because business environment always change from time to time, so it wants to give users the flexibilities to handle different scenarios. Okay, now with everything coming here, let's take a look at how budget control looks like. So this is the user for the buyer. When the user as a buyer, when he's trying to put in a purchase order or supply invoice, if the purchase order amount is greater than the available budget, the system will not allow them to put in the order. They can only save the data, or they cannot post the data. So if I do the check here, it's going to give you an alert saying that your budget is exceeding for the specific budget category that you're trying to work on by a certain amount. And if you look at the reporting features that SAP provides you with the cost center budget monitoring report, let me refresh the screen. You can see, what is the current budget spend so far. Again, let me close this one and then open it again. And then what is the remaining budget to spend for the period. Now you can see from the report that, on these budget categories, travel, I believe I put budget category travel on my filter, and then on this cost center, your current budget spend is 40,220, but your planned budget or your release budget is only 38,400. So you already exceeded certain amount that the system would not allow you to post more POs or supply invoice unless you take an action to either increase the budget or set up where you can exceed the budgets to post the transactions. Again, I'm going to go back to the end-to-end process flow. We show you how you can create a budget plan and how you can release the budget, based on the budget plan that you created it, how you can make adjustments to a budget plan as well. And then we show you the accurate live workflow on purchase order. Supply invoice is very similar. I'm going to skip it because I don't have much time, but it's the same behavior that you see on the purchase order, just not that you're going to get an error. You can't proceed on posting the invoice until you have enough budget to cover the spend you have on the invoice. Okay, now let's take a look at the general entry screens. This is a general entry for the supply invoice that has budget category posted. ByDesign enables this where for each lines of the GEOs that it has budget categories captured, you will be able to see the budget categories information on the general entry as well, so that you can run reporting easily from the system to determine your spending behaviors. Now, I put the calculation formula out here. So how does ByDesign calculate what is the available budget? It depends on two scenarios. The first scenario is the cost centers and cost collecting projects. This is the scenario where it look at the cost center and product budget, the budget categories to determine your budget availabilities. It's going to use the release budget year to period amount, subtract the actuals plus your encumbrances amounts. There's also the scenario where you can apply the agile budget control on the direct cost project as well. In that case, it actually takes your project's task cost estimate as your plan budget amounts to subtract the actuals and your encumbrances amounts. Now, the benefits of these agile budget control features, you can plan your budget yearly and then you can release it as the periods needed to allow the users to use. You can do the data migration, the data maintenance using Excel uploads, so that it is the side of maintaining the data. Your business will gain a better means to control your spending behavior with this workflow, because you will not have a trouble where you're spending too much over your budget, but you didn't catch up until way later in the game. There's quite a big and additional analytical reports that's available today with budget control. I think they actually released 3 versions of the budget monitoring report out there for the last release, and then more are coming out. So you will see these features coming, into place a lot in the system right now. And outside of that, ByDesign also provides some APIs for the active budget control as well. So if you see any requirements to customize the solution, we can work with you to define the requirement and then work with you to customize the solution if necessary. SAP actually provide a recommendation on how to implement this. I'm gonna send this. I think Hart's gonna send these slides to you so you can take a look at that. We can help you determine what is the best approach to implement this if you decided to implement it so that it makes sense for your business.